8th episode of the University School of True Crime podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jordan Heiser, with
Joey Valerio
and guests
Tristan Jackson,
Andrew Martin,
and we're going to be covering the Slenderman Stabbings. So this is a solved case, and there's a lot of backstory to this case that goes beyond the people involved. So, like the name suggests, this was to do with Slenderman, and Slenderman is a fictional internet character that originated on what's called a creepypasta, which is just basically just a site where people can make these, creepy characters and show them off to a bunch of people about what they've made and stuff like that. And it came from a Photoshop contest that was just intended for fun, like I just said. But there were no bad intentions behind this contest or this character. And this Slenderman is the modern-day boogeyman, essentially. He's whatever your story makes him. So, he could be in the forest, under your bed, at the house next door, just whatever you decide to make of it. And there's even a video game based on Slenderman. And there was a movie released in 2018, but the movie has very bad reviews. I want to say it's 7% on Rotten Tomatoes. And like a 2.1 out of 10 stars.
That's rough.
That's pretty bad.
That's horrible.
But the story went viral, as you can assume. And Slenderman is this extremely tall, skinny guy who's pale and has no facial features. So it's basically just like if you put a white mask over your face, it had no facial features at all.
He's like me without a face.
Essentially, yes.
Nice.
And he has creepy tentacles that come out of his back in some of these stories. And he makes people mentally ill and is known for creeping on children and kidnapping them and killing them or their families, is what basically originated behind this story.
I wanna retract my statement from earlier. He is nothing like me.
What about the tentacles there?
I can't speak on that.
Okay.
Not that you know of, at least?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So, this case takes place in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and it happened on May 31st, 2014. So the suspects are Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire. So Anissa was born on November 10th, 2001, and Morgan was born on May 16th, 2002. And they were both 12 at the time of this case. Everybody usually blames the parents when something like this happens because many people believe that, you should monitor what your kid does online, especially now in 2022. It's, a lot more prevalent than it even was back when this case happened. But both of these girls had access to the internet, but their parents, were not bad people at all. They did know that these girls had an obsession with Slenderman, and it's fairly normal for kids to, have these odd obsessions or be into scary things like that. I know even myself, when I was younger, in middle school, I would just, watch a bunch of, scary videos because
This, for me in particular, Slenderman was a thing that I got very into when I was younger. So I played the games. I watched other people play the games. I read up on everything about it. It was very interesting to me. I never went this far with it, obviously, but
so we know of.
I never went this far with it, Jordan.
And I mean, yeah, like you just said, Slenderman was a thing that I even was interested in. I didn't go as far as playing the games and stuff like that, but I would watch Slenderman videos,
right?
Reported, quote unquote reported sightings and cases of Slenderman and stuff like that. So I was interested in it, and being somebody that lives in the woods, my house is literally surrounded by woods.
Yep.
So even when I would watch it, I would still get in my own mindset of, this could be, near my house because of
what if it is real?
Yeah, because of the story surrounding it. So even I believed, I'm scared of this because of where I live. You know,
Right.
what if it is real and stuff like that. But you know, obviously, my mindset has changed a lot since then, and you know,
And
I completely understand that it's not.
I will say, at the time, some of the stories were very convincing.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that's why I believed it a lot. It was because of how convincing the stories were, and you know, like people made like fake audio tapes,
Right.
and those were even believable because like
Right.
they had, you know, like it sounded like somebody breaking a window or something.
It's like
Right.
barefoot.
Yeah,
The belief of it.
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Barefoot.
Bigfoot.
Barefoot.
That's going in the
The-
blooper reel.
The
I think we should keep that in there.
the belief of it, you know, people make it so real, but in reality, I mean, there's cameras everywhere, so I mean,
Exactly.
So-
Like, and so basically, Morgan and Anissa were friends who both struggled, you know, making other friends. They struggled with bullying, and they weren't the most popular girls. Anissa was the first one to come across Slenderman, and she got super obsessed with it, and she showed this to Morgan. Now, something about Morgan is that she was later diagnosed with schizophrenia, and her father was also diagnosed with it. They both knew that it was possibly one of their children would have it. That would be Morgan's mom and dad basically knew that, you know, one of their children might have it because her dad had it. And, you know, they were still cautious with the way that, you know, she still believed in Santa when she was older. Like, you know, when she was, you know, our age, or, well, they weren't at this time, but, like, you know, it was, like, the getting older factor, and they still believed in a lot of this stuff that, you know, a lot of people, you know, yes, there's occasional situations where, you know, some people do still believe in it and stuff like that, but the reality is a lot of people come to know what's actually happening.
Right.
You know, for Morgan, this didn't happen. Morgan and Anissa would talk about Slenderman often and how they both believed in him and stuff like that. And after Anissa showed Morgan Slenderman, she became fully obsessed with it, just like Anissa was. And they truly thought that Slenderman was a real character. Like, you know, we were telling stories earlier. But what they did not know is because Morgan had schizophrenia, she was really seeing Slenderman. And again, that's all from the schizophrenia.
Yeah. I mean, schizophrenia will do that to you.
So, like, it even goes farther from, you know, believing that it's something real to, you know, Morgan actually seeing something, even if it's not there.
They have proof in their own mind that it is real because they've seen it with their own eyes, even though other people can't see it. It's something that it's hard to convince someone that they didn't see something.
Exactly.
So.
And so the two of them decided that they wanted to become what they call Slenderman proxies, which meant you were able to live with Slenderman in his, you know, so-called mansion, which the girls actually thought was a real place in Nicollet National Forest. And the only way to become one of his proxies was to kill a child in the name of Slenderman to prove that he was real. After that, you would get to live the rest of your life with him, and he would never hurt you because you proved something to him. So they decided that they needed to kill one of their best friends that they were best friends with since 4th grade. So the victim's name is Peyton Leutner. There's not much information about her, like how I had, you know, the birthdays and stuff of the two suspects, but, you know, I probably researched just Peyton for an hour and a half, and I literally could not find anything. Because everything just related back to this case and just, you know, talked about her experience with this case and, you know, the things that she's still going through. So there's not really much personal information about her, which, you know.
I'm glad for her sake that's the case, because I would imagine even with what's out there, she must get so much attention from this. And of course, she was a minor at the time.
So, just to clarify, Peyton is still alive.
Yes, Peyton is alive.
Yeah, so it's good that there's not as much information on her, because then, you know, people want to know more and more.
Right.
And at the time, she could have a brief memory of it, and then she doesn't want to go into it of how she almost got killed.
Like, this is something that most
two
people...
girls that were 12-year-olds that she was best friends with for
this
years.
Is something you would want to probably forget
as much as
if
possible.
you went through it, yeah.
I mean, that's an understatement, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you want it out. You would want this out of your life. So it is glad that the internet only has like younger life of her and not anything now. So she's almost a ghost in that sense of that.
Yeah.
So on May 30th, 2014, Peyton had a sleepover with Morgan and Anissa. It was similar to a birthday party type thing at Morgan's house, and she was going to go roller skating, have pizza, and spend the night at Morgan's house. Morgan's parents said that the girls had a great night. Their plan, however, was to kill Peyton during that night at their house, at Morgan's house. But they got nervous, and Morgan said that they wanted to give Peyton one last morning before they killed her. So, I mean, even then, that's just sick.
Yeah.
Like,
that's horrible. Like, how do you think of this? I mean, I know, even though, like, you look into so much, you have an obsession, but how do you get to the point of thinking as a 12-year-old, you're going to let the person get one more little last day before you kill them?
Right.
You know, like, it's not even just the fact that they postponed it to, you know, what they thought was going to be the next morning. It's the fact that, you know, after they got nervous about it and after they were anxious about it, they still decided to go through with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, they second thought it multiple times, and they still went through with it. So, May 31st, 2014, the girls the next morning had breakfast. Morgan's mom was with them, and there were no red flags at all. They did not tell anybody what they were going to do because they had to keep it, quote, secret in the name of Slenderman. The girls asked to go to the park, and Morgan's mom said yes. And they were all 12 at the time. So while at the park, they almost killed her in the bathroom, but got too nervous, so they finally convinced Peyton to go play hide and seek with them. Peyton was initially reluctant, but they told her that they would play the game she wanted to if they could play hide and seek. And I mean, like we've said in multiple other cases, just that trust your gut factor.
Yeah.
You know, like I just said, she was initially reluctant, and then she finally just kind of gave in to
She got peer pressure.
Right.
Yeah, like, she just kind of gave in to, you know, what they wanted to do, and it's, I mean, just that trusting your gut and trusting your instinct.
Yeah.
But while they were playing hide and seek, they went into the forest. After much argument about who was actually going to kill her, Morgan was the one who stabbed her. And Morgan stabbed her 19 times. Anissa couldn't watch it, so she was walking away and then told Morgan to do it. Morgan sat on Peyton's legs and got really close to her face. She then whispered, quote, "I'm so sorry." Anissa and Morgan were apparently apologizing the entire time while Peyton was screaming and saying how much she had trusted them. They did not have anything personally against Peyton, and they still talk about her to this day, but they were so scared of Slenderman that they thought it had to be done. And Peyton was laying there on the verge of death, and the girls said they were going to get help for her. They decided the best plan was to start walking towards the Nicollet National Forest, which is about a 4 to 5 hour drive from where they were. And if you recall, that's where they believed Slenderman's mansion was in Nicollet National Forest.
Yeah.
So they took the knife with them, put on their bags, and started walking. Peyton ended up crawling out of the forest and managed to get on the road and just laid there. A cyclist came by and called 911, and she said she was having trouble breathing. She had stab wounds pretty much everywhere, and one was so close to her heart that it missed by a millimeter. This stab wound hit the outer tissue of her heart but missed her artery. And two of the wounds hit major arteries, so her survival chances were very, very slim at the time. She could barely speak and could only really answer yes or no questions to, you know, conserve a lot of her energy, or the little bit of energy that she had left. She was able to tell the police who did this to her, and anyone who's stabbed in what they call the cardiac box has a 25 to 50% chance of survival. And I think with Peyton's injuries, it was probably much less.
Yeah.
But Peyton miraculously survived this.
Especially considering that it was multiple times.
Right.
19.
Yeah.
And any time you hit an artery,
Yeah.
I mean that is very serious, and it does not take long to lose enough blood to pass out and die. That's just unbelievable that she survived.
Yeah.
And the two girls were found walking down the street with their bag, and the police found pretty much all the evidence they needed right there in the bag. And the two girls never tried to deny it at all. During questioning, the girls were brought in and explained the entire Slenderman thing. They explained how they did not want to do this to her, and they wish it could have been pushed back and avoided, but they knew that they had to do it. They even asked about Peyton and if she was okay, and Geyser's family offered an apology to Peyton and her family, but Wire's family did not comment at the time. While in the hospital, Peyton was released after 6 days and started back in school in the fall of 2014. During sentencing, Morgan and Anissa were incarcerated for years, unable to see their families. The judge ruled that they would be tried as adults. Morgan was being incarcerated in a place with no windows, no outdoor time, and she was diagnosed with schizophrenia, like previously said, and they both pleaded not guilty due to insanity. Morgan was sentenced up to 40 years in a mental hospital, and Wire got up to 25 years in a mental institution and was released in late 2021. So obviously that sentence got cut down a lot.
Yeah.
And afterwards, Peyton spent a lot of time at local animal shelters, spending time with, lots of cats and dogs. She went to a Katy Perry concert, and her walls were covered in Purple Hearts with notes from people all around the world, kind of, telling her to keep going and not to give up on anything she's ever wanted to do. And something like that.
Support.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean,
The sentence, man, that got cut down from.
yeah.
Wow.
Got cut down like 18 years.
So that's pretty recent. The releasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason why she got out was because she was, I guess, insane. Like, obviously, Morgan has schizophrenia, so that's the reason why she got more time, was to kind of treat that. But...
And now she's isolated. Oh, no, is she the one who's isolated?
No. Or, yeah, Morgan was isolated, and Nisa got released.
Okay.
But also, you do have to remember the sentencing kind of makes sense in that Morgan was the one who actually did it.
Yeah.
That is
And
true,
then-
yeah.
And then...
So Anissa was just a
Anissa was just an accomplice.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know if you guys have any last...
my only last thing is just be careful what you become obsessed with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it doesn't absolutely take over your mind. Rather you have schizophrenia or not. I mean, if you do have schizophrenia, make sure you are super careful so you don't lead to this instance, and it could be even worse if you're older.
Exactly.
That's worse time. And you don't, you're 12 at this point, but imagine you do it at 8. You're 18, you can be tried as an adult as well, but it could be even worse. So,
Right.
right.
I mean, just gotta be careful who you trust, That's all I got.
Yeah, for sure. That, for sure.
Yeah.
That concludes the 8th episode of the University School True Crime Podcast.